People say people from Brooklyn curse a lot, but they don't mean to. Certain words are adjectives to them. Like when I was going to college, I was in a history class with a friend of mine who was from Brooklyn, and a professor was talking about when Argentina attacked the Falkland Islands. So, this guy's going, yo, Professor, what Falkland Islands you talking about? So the professor's like, I don't think you want to say it. He's going, hey, no, you don't understand. I ask you a question, I gotta know what Falkland Islands you're talking about. There's Falkland Islands all over the place. What am I supposed to put on a test for crying out loud? So the professor's like, look, there's only one Falkland Island. He's like, hey, moron. Hey, read my lips, all right? There's Falkland Islands all over the world. Look at the map. Look at it. See those little pieces of dirt floating around in the water? Do you know what they are? They're Falkland Islands. You got the Hawaiian Falkland Islands, the Bermuda Falkland Islands, the Caribbean Falkland Islands, and somewhere on there, you got Gilligan's Falkland Islands.
Good morning. It's Monday, Medal of Honor Monday, January the 1st. Happy New Year. And this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the military shorts, the motivational shorts, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, and the Medal of Honor. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I shouldn't change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. And now, the military shorts.
He was a private first class in C Company of the 116th Infantry. His name was Marvin Farmer, and he was on patrol in the suburbs south of Aachen, clearing the remains of some bombed-out houses. It was mid-October 1944, and the crisp autumn and beautiful foliage belied the treacherous weeks of difficult, at times brutal fighting. Farmer came across an elderly German man hidden in a basement, seemingly terrified at the prospect of being found. In thickly accented but fluent English, he told Farmer, "I was hiding gasoline, and that's punishable by death." Then the old German started crying. "Has Philadelphia been completely bombed out?" he asked nervously. "No," said a startled Farmer. "It hasn't been touched." "My prayers have been answered then," the German whispered. "My daughter lives there, and I hope to join her someday." Farmer gave the man his food rations and let him keep the gasoline.
What happens when you strap precision-guided bombs onto the F-14 Tomcat and send it into battle? The answer came in September 1995, and the results were devastating. The F-14s were part of Operation Deliberate Force, a campaign in which NATO air forces carried out airstrikes against Bosnian Serb targets. Of course, in the F-14's 20-year history, they had never been used in air-to-ground missions. But the U.S. Navy decided to try a lethal experiment, turning the air-to-air monster into a bomber by adding both precision-guided and unguided bombs to the F-14's arsenal. Since the F-14 still lacked the ability to self-designate, F-18s flew with them to laze ground targets, while the F-14s dropped their payloads with impressive accuracy. Over the course of the week, F-14s dropped a total of 24,000 pounds of ordnance on enemy targets. Thus, the Tomcat became the Bombcat and helped bring an end to the 3-year-old war in the Balkans.
His scouts were pinned down in the thick kunai grass of Leyte in the Philippines, unable to escape the intense Japanese crossfire. Suddenly, a cry for help rang out. One of his boys was hit badly. He was First Lieutenant Stephen Gold, a platoon leader in Fox Company of the 19th Infantry Regiment, and the cry of agony was too much to bear. Gold dashed 50 yards through a hailstorm of bullets to aid the young soldier. He was hit twice along the way, but still managed to apply a tourniquet on the bleeding man, sling him over his shoulder, and sprint back to a safe location, saving his life. Gold earned a Bronze Star and Purple Heart for his heroics. He never knew what came of the wounded scout. 40 years later, Stephen Gold was strolling the grounds of the Illinois State Fair when a man with a teenage boy approached him. "Son, meet Lieutenant Gold. He saved my life during the war." The boy wrapped his arms around Gold. "Thank you," was all he could say through the tears.
This country has committed the most war crimes in history. It's no surprise that it was a member of the Axis powers, but it may not be the one you think. Nazi Germany was infamous for its targeting of civilians, but many of its worst crimes, like the Holocaust, were crimes against humanity rather than war crimes. They only rarely killed prisoners of war. This was not the case for Imperial Japan, who had them beat in war crimes. From before the start of World War II, they were terrorizing Asia. Their invasion of China involved the Nanjing Massacre, which saw a 6-week massacre that ended with the death of at least 200,000 people. Imperial Japan regularly broke the laws of war, targeting civilian ships, neutral countries, and downed soldiers who were trying to surrender. And for those who wound up in Japanese custody, an even worse fate awaited them. Captured prisoners of war were tortured, beaten, killed, and subjected to horrific medical experiments as part of the infamous Unit 731. It's estimated that these experiments alone caused 3,000 deaths. It's no surprise that the ringleaders faced war crime trials after the war, and many of them hung just like the Nazi leadership.
In January 2012, a group of Taliban stormed a communications center in Afghanistan and barricaded themselves there with several hostages. Local police tried to free the hostages but were repelled again and again. Fortunately, special forces of the Polish JWK happened to be nearby, who heard the gunfire and offered their help. As the soldiers were planning out the rescue operation, they noticed a side staircase that would allow them to directly enter the building. Since the Taliban were likely to execute their captives soon, the soldiers attacked immediately. Under the cover of snipers, they approached the building in 2 groups and blew open the door on the staircase. A few seconds later, the operators swarmed into the hallway of the building and received fire from a small room. Using a flashbang grenade, they engaged the threat and then cleared the rest of the building. After only a few minutes, the Poles had secured the entire floor, eliminated 2 more insurgents, and successfully freed all hostages.
On June 5, 1945, the USS Pittsburgh, along with the rest of Task Force 38, was caught in the middle of a ferocious typhoon 350 miles southeast of Okinawa. With winds up to 100 knots and rolling waves 100 feet high, at 6:33 a.m. the deck log notes, "The bow just forward of frame 26 buckled upward with the sea and then fell off." While damage control parties shored up the damage, Pittsburgh's captain, John E. Gingrich, in an incredible feat of seamanship, maneuvered to avoid the severed 100 feet of bow while also turning his ship around in the middle of the typhoon to steam in reverse to take pressure off the forward part of the ship. Incredibly, there were no casualties as all decks in that part of the ship had been evacuated and sealed just prior to the bow coming off. Pittsburgh steamed onto Guam for temporary repairs, while her drifting bow was recovered by fleet tugs.
She was one of the leading ladies of the golden age of cinema, revered around the globe for her flowing platinum locks, which Hollywood dubbed the peekaboo. Her name was Veronica Lake, and she would play an important and unheralded role during the Second World War. Following the sneak attack on Pearl Harbor, housewives quickly entered the workforce by the millions as the soldiers were sent overseas. Her peekaboo hairstyle was all the rage with women across America, but with it came thousands of gruesome industrial accidents, something no one had anticipated. It was so problematic that the U.S. Army asked Veronica to cut her hair, which she unhesitatingly did. She unveiled the V for Victory bun, and with it came an immediate drop in factory accidents. But sadly, it also plummeted her film career. Moviegoers didn't buy her femme fatale persona in short hair. Her career never recovered, and she would die at 49 from decades of alcoholism.
The MQ-9 Reaper is the primary offensive strike unmanned aerial vehicle for the U.S. Air Force. Given its significant loiter time, wide-range sensors, multi-mode communication suite, and precision weapons, it provides a unique capability to perform strike, coordination, and reconnaissance against high-value, fleeting, and time-sensitive targets. Reapers can also perform missions intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, close air support, combat search and rescue, precision strike, buddy laser, convoy/raid overwatch, route clearance, target development, and terminal air guidance. The Reaper is part of a remotely piloted aircraft system. A fully operational system consists of several sensor/weapon-equipped aircraft, ground control station, Predator primary satellite link, and spare equipment along with operations and maintenance crews for deployed 24-hour missions.
This remarkable photograph, taken in the final stages of World War II, shows the imprint left by a Japanese Mitsubishi Ki-51 Sonya aircraft in a kamikaze attack. Originating from a Japanese airbase in Malaya, the plane slammed into the side of the British cruiser HMS Sussex on the 26th of July 1945. Although the attack was a success as far as the pilot was concerned, the outcome was certainly not as intended, with Sussex's 4.5-inch thick armor withstanding the impact with only minor superficial damage.
What's the real reason humans still fly fighter jets? Let me explain. The United States and even China have tried. If they developed a combat drone, it would be fearless in fights and so much more. But things just aren't the same when a robot is in control. One of the first reasons is technology hasn't reached the level needed to match a human pilot's ability in busy airspace. And no nation has cracked the code to develop something that matches a pilot's real-time decision-making skills. Even though drones are great for surveillance, they don't work well in combat missions with high stakes. However, the biggest problem is the question of how ethical a drone is. Giving machines decision-making powers is not a good idea. Letting them decide when and where to do airstrikes would be dangerous. But this doesn't mean all fighter jets will keep being flown by humans. Manned 6th-generation fighters will fly together with advanced drones instead of replacing them. At the moment, there's too many risks, and technology will keep improving, so things might change. But humans in the cockpit remain for now.
Thank you. And now, the motivational shorts.
We did not come this far to just break down and lose now. I'm a winner. I'm going to win.
Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that.
Now go out there and show me how you do things. Show me how you live. Show me how you fight.
To show you how I fight?
Yeah. Show me who the fuck you are.
A lot of people can give up. It's easy to give up. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. All right, man, I'm done. I ain't going. I ain't gonna keep going.
Yeah,
I don't feel like going to work. It's very easy. But what's hard is going, yesterday I got nothing from working as hard as I could. Nothing happened from that. I'm going to do the same thing again today, but I'm going to try to go harder. That's the hardest thing in the world. To get up every day and give 100% and be in the same position that you were each day, but mentally know that you're trying and trying and trying. That's a real grind.
I asked for strength, and God gave me difficulties to make me strong. I asked for wisdom, and God gave me problems to solve. I asked for courage, and God gave me dangers to overcome. I asked for love, and God gave me troubled people to help. My prayers were answered.
There's a saying that you can't start a new chapter in your life if you continue to reread the last one. So may the road ahead of you be filled with action, not hope, passion, not obligation, and results, not plans. You may just fall in love with where it takes you.
When you said, I'm all in, were you really all in? Let me tell you what the cost of being all in is. Early mornings, late nights, being misunderstood, having very few friends, being your own cheerleader. Are you those things? People always talk about, man, I'm a hard worker. Everybody in this room is a hard worker. That's not going to separate you from anybody else. What are you working hard on? People always look for one thing for the other. Oh, you got to work smarter and not harder. No, you got to work smarter and you got to work harder.
Think about a child you love. Now take away their clean clothes, access to water, and the roof over their head.
If you only have 24 hours in a day, your success is dependent upon how you use the 24. You got to hear me. People talk about Oprah Winfrey, Ted Turner, Warren Buffett. Listen to me. I don't care how much money you make. You only get 24 hours in a day. And the difference between Oprah and the person that's broke is Oprah uses her 24 hours wisely. That's it. Listen to me. That's it. You get 24. I don't care if you broke, you grew up broke. I don't care if you grew up rich. I don't care if you're in college, you're not in college. You only get 24 hours. And I blew up literally. I went from being a high school dropout to selling 6,000 books in less than 6 months. What happened? My 24 hours. I was like, okay, Eric, you got to get a grip on your 24 hours because you're about to be broke for the rest of your life. And that's all I need you to do for me. I can tell you all about your life if you just write down your 24-hour schedule for me. You let me look at it. I can tell you where you're going to be in 5 years. I can tell you where you're going to be in 10 years. I can tell you where you're going to be in 20 years if you keep that schedule.
I believe in the power of words. Many people speak before they think. But I know the value of words. The words can make you, break you, they can heal your soul, they can damage you forever. So I always try to use the positive words in my life wherever I go. They call it adversity, I call it opportunity. They call it weakness, I call it strength. They call me disabled, I call myself differently abled. They see my disability. They see my disability, I see my ability. There are some incidents that happen in your life, and those incidents are so strong that they change your DNA. Those incidents or accidents are so strong that they break you physically. They deform your body, but they transform your soul.
The question isn't, can you handle the situation? The question is, can you handle your mind? Can you manage the thoughts and the emotions that are trying to poison your progress? Forget managing the situation. Manage your mind.
Get it, David. Come on. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Energy. Let it out. 7, 8,
works like David in this house. 13, come on. 14, come on. 15, shut that muscle down. 16, come on. Get it. 17. You don't know me, son. Get it. 18. You don't know me, son. Get it. 19. You don't know me, son. Yeah. 20, you got some more. 21, yeah, get it again. Come on, I want to see it. Good. 22. Who's going to carry the boats and the logs? That's you, buddy. Come on, 23. Come on, 24. One more, David. One more. Carry the boats. You're going to do it. You're going to do it. You're going to do it. You did it. Yeah.
At the end of every day, you look yourself in the mirror and you ask yourself, did I get better today? If the answer is yes, and you do that for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, how much better are you going to be? Are you getting better every single day? That's the question. And it's just taking small steps. You don't try to get it all done in one day, in 1 week, in 1 year. It's the process of getting better every day and doing that for a period of years that then create the masterpiece.
And that was the Motivational Shorts. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the 33 strategies of war.
Little time was wasted with the passing of orders back and forth, and smaller armies, needing less baggage, could march with greater speed. Instead of a single army moving in a straight line, Napoleon could disperse and concentrate his corps in limitless patterns, which to the enemy seemed chaotic and unreadable. This was the monster that Napoleon unleashed on Europe in September 1805. While a few corps were dispatched to northern Italy as a holding force against Austria's planned invasion there, 7 corps moved east into Germany in a scattered array. A reserve force with much cavalry was sent through the Black Forest, drawing Mack to the west, and so making it harder for him to understand what was happening to the north, and easier to entrap. Napoleon understood Mack's simple psychology, and how the appearance of disorder would paralyze him. Meanwhile, with Stuttgart as a pivot, the 7 corps wheeled south to the Danube and cut off Mack's various escape routes. One corps marshal, hearing that the northeastern route was weakly held, did not wait for Napoleon to send orders, but simply sped and covered it on his own. Wherever Mack went, he would hit a corps large enough to hold him until the rest of the French army could tighten the circle. It was like a pack of coyotes against a rabbit. Understand, the future belongs to groups that are fluid, fast, and non-linear. Your natural tendency as a leader may be to want to control the group, to coordinate its every movement. But that will just tie you to the past and to the slow-moving armies of history. It takes strength of character to allow for a margin of chaos and uncertainty, to let go a little. But by decentralizing your army and segmenting it into teams, you will gain in mobility what you lose in complete control. And mobility is the greatest force multiplier of them all. It allows you to both disperse and concentrate your army, throwing it into patterns instead of advancing in straight lines. These patterns will confuse and paralyze your opponents. Give your different corps clear missions that fit your strategic goals. Then let them accomplish them as they see fit. Smaller teams are faster, more creative, more adaptable. Their officers and soldiers are more engaged, more motivated. In the end, fluidity will bring you far more power and control than petty domination. By Napoleon, separate to live, unite to fight. Keys to warfare. The world is full of people looking for a secret formula for success and power. They do not want to think on their own. They just want a recipe to follow. They are attracted to the idea of strategy for that very reason. In their minds, strategy is a series of steps to be followed toward a goal. They want these steps spelled out for them by an expert or a guru. Believing in the power of imitation, they want to know exactly what some great person has done before.
Their maneuvers in life are as mechanical as their thinking. To separate yourself from such a crowd, you need to get rid of a common misconception. The essence of strategy is not to carry out a brilliant plan that proceeds in steps. It is to put yourself in situations where you have more options than the enemy does. Instead of grasping at option A as the single right answer, true strategy is positioning yourself to be able to do A, B, or C, depending on the circumstances. That is strategic depth of thinking, as opposed to formulaic thinking. Sun Tzu expressed this idea differently. What you aim for in strategy, he said, is sure, a position of potential force. The position of a boulder perched precariously on a hilltop, say, or of a bowstring stretched taut. A tap on the boulder, the release of the bowstring, and potential force is violently unleashed. The boulder or arrow can go in any direction. It is geared to the actions of the enemy. What matters is not following preordained steps, but placing yourself in sure and giving yourself options. Napoleon was probably unaware of Sun Tzu's concept of sure, yet he had perhaps history's greatest understanding of it. Once he had positioned his 7 corps in their seemingly chaotic pattern along the Rhine and his reserve forces in the Black Forest, he was in sure. Wherever Mach turned, whatever he did, the Austrians were doomed. Napoleon had endless options, while Mach had only a few, and all of them bad. Napoleon had always aimed at his version of sure, and he perfected it in the 1805 campaign. Obsessed with structure and organization, he developed the corps system, building flexibility into the very skeleton of his army. The lesson is simple. A rigid, centralized organization locks you into linear strategies. A fluid, segmented army gives you options, endless possibilities for reaching sure. Structure is strategy, perhaps the most important strategic choice you will make. Should you inherit a group, analyze its structure, and alter it to suit your purposes. Pour your creative energy into its organization, making fluidity your goal. In doing so, you will be following in the footsteps not only of Napoleon, but of perhaps the greatest war machine in modern times, the Prussian and later German army. Shortly after Napoleon's devastating defeat of the Prussians at the Battle of Jena in 1806, see Chapter 2, the Prussian leaders did some soul-searching. They saw they were stuck in the past. Their way of doing things was too rigid. Suddenly, the military reformers, including Karl von Clausewitz, were taken seriously and given power. And what they decided to do was unprecedented in history. They would institutionalize success by designing a superior army structure. At the core of this revolution was the creation of a general staff, a cadre of officers specially trained and educated in strategy, tactics, and leadership. A king, a prime minister, or even a general might be incompetent at war, but a group of brilliant and well-trained officers on the army staff could compensate for his failures. The structure of this body was unfixed. Each new chief of staff could alter its size and function to suit his needs and the times. After each campaign or training exercise, the staff would rigorously examine itself and its performance. A whole section was created for the purpose of these examinations and for the study of military history. The general staff would learn from its mistakes and those of others. It was to be a work permanently in progress. The most important reform was the development of the Auftragstaktik, mission-oriented command system. In German, there are 2 words for command, Auftrag and Befehl. A Befehl is an order to be obeyed to the letter. An Auftrag is much more general. It is a statement of overall mission, a directive to be followed in its spirit, not its letter. The Auftragstaktik, inspired by Prussia's archenemy Napoleon and the leeway he gave his marshals, permeated the general staff. Officers were first inculcated with the philosophy of German warfare. Speed, the need to take the offensive, and so on. Then they were put through exercises to help them develop their ability to think on their own, to make decisions that met the overall philosophy but responded to the circumstances of the moment. Leading the equivalent of a corps in battle, officers were given missions to accomplish and then were let loose. They were judged by the results of their actions, not on how those results were achieved. The General Staff, with a few interruptions, was in place from 1808 to the end of World War II. During that period, the Germans consistently outfought other armies in the field, including the Allies in World War I, despite the severe limitations of trench warfare. Their success culminated in the most devastating military victory in modern history, the 1940 Blitzkrieg invasion of France and the Low Countries, when the German army ran rings around the rigid defenses of the French. It was the structure of their army and their use of the Auftragstaktik that gave them more options and greater potential force. The German General Staff should serve as the organizational model for any group that aims at mobility and strategic depth. First, the staff's structure was fluid, allowing its leaders to adapt it to their own needs. Second, it examined itself constantly and modified itself according to what it had learned. Third, it replicated its structure through the rest of the army. Its officers trained the officers below them, and so on down the line. The smallest team was inculcated with the overall philosophy of the group. Finally, rather than issuing rigid orders, the staff embraced the mission command, the Auftragstaktik. By making officers and soldiers feel more creatively engaged, this tactic improved their performance and sped up the decision-making process. Mobility was written into the system. The key to the Auftragstaktik is an overall group philosophy. This can be built around the cause you are fighting for or a belief in the evil of the enemy you face. It can also include the style of warfare, defensive, mobile, ruthlessly aggressive, that best suits it. You must bring the group together around this belief. Then, through training and creative exercises, you must deepen its hold on them, infuse it into their blood. Now, when you unleash your corps on their missions, you can trust their decisions and feel confident in your power to coordinate them. The Mongol hordes led by Genghis Khan in the first half of the 13th century were perhaps the closest precursors to Napoleon's corps.
And that was the part of Chapter 6, second part, Segment Your Forces from the 33 Strategies of War. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Bishop Robert Barron.
I'm standing before you as a relatively free speaker of English. I can express all my feelings and thoughts with sufficient nuance. How did I get so free with English? Because early on, I was told just talk any way you want. Well, of course not. From the time I was a child, my speech was controlled and it was limited by the laws of English vocabulary and syntax and grammar. Again and again, I was corrected in my speech. The law of English got ever deeper inside of me so that it determined not just the way I think, but even the way I feel and react. I so internalized the laws of English that I became a free speaker of the language. The law is not the enemy of freedom, but the condition for the possibility of freedom. It's the law, in fact, that makes us free. So it goes on a biblical understanding of freedom. In the Bible, freedom means something like this: not self-determination, but rather the disciplining of desire, so as to make the achievement of the good first possible and then effortless.
And that was Bishop Robert Barron. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, "The spread of evil is the symptom of a vacuum. Whenever evil wins, it is only by default, by the moral failure of those who evade the fact that there can be no compromise on basic principles." Unquote. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, President Biden awarding the Medal of Honor to Larry Taylor.
In 1967, just 2 months after he finished helicopter training, First Lieutenant Larry Taylor was sent to Vietnam to fly some of the first Cobra attack helicopters the U.S. Army ever used in combat.
At that time, there were only 9 Cobras in the entire 1st Division.
His mission, respond quickly whenever soldiers were in trouble.
By God, when the horn went off, you had 2 minutes to get that ship off the ground. I don't care if you flew it naked.
Larry got that call more than 1,600 times during his year in Vietnam, but it was one night in June 1968, during some of the deadliest, darkest times of the Tet Offensive, that Larry Taylor shined his brightest. Nearly 100 North Vietnamese troops were closing in on 4 American reconnaissance soldiers known as Wildcat II, and they were running out of ammunition. Dave Hill was one of them.
Totally surrounded. Is an area about the size of a football field.
Larry Taylor and his wingman swooped in, firing more than 150 rockets and 16,000 bullets into the total darkness, but the Americans were still pinned down. Also running low on ammunition and fuel, Larry's commander came over the radio, ordering him back to base to resupply. Mike Holden saw it all unfolding.
He told him, I'm the senior officer in this, you're not. Get off my frequency. I'm going in and these 4 men are going to die. Turned it off and went down.
Larry turned off that radio frequency and turned on his landing lights, drawing the enemy fire so the Americans could make a run for it, telling the men where to run and assuring them, I'll find you. What was going through your mind?
Before I started the approach in, I thought this is a good idea. And when I got about halfway through it, I thought, what the hell am I doing?
What did your co-pilot say to you?
He said, ah! I said, relax. And he says, hell, I'm sitting in front. I said, they'll shoot me first.
But the Cobra could only carry the 2 pilots and no passengers.
Larry said, I'm going to land. You got 10 seconds to get on. I don't care how you do it. I don't care where you sit.
As soon as I landed, they looked like, where's the door? And I said, there's no door. This is a Cobra. Get the hell on here. So 2 of them sat on the skid and grabbed the strut. 2 of them straddled the rocket pods backwards and flew.
So he's on the ground. He said 10 seconds. We didn't use half of it.
I found them, landed, and within 2 seconds, hell, they were hanging on, and somebody slapped the side of the ship, which meant haul ice, and we did.
Were you taking fire as you were lifting off and as you were flying?
Yeah.
Was anyone hit?
Me.
You were hit. You
the
yourself?
Ship was.
At least 16 bullets hit the Cobra helicopter, but Larry, his co-pilot, and the 4 soldiers clinging to the sides were untouched.
I couldn't have flown them at night because the air was cold and they would have frozen.
They cleared the area and touched down minutes later at a water treatment plant secured by U.S. troops. Did you get in trouble for defying the order?
What are they going to do, send me to Vietnam?
Why did you do that?
I knew they were in trouble, and if I hadn't have picked them up,
they'd be dead.
They'd be dead.
With barely enough fuel to get back to base, Larry was back in the air only moments later.
He was just a shadowy part of a helmet. We couldn't even see his face because of our position on the other side of the plexiglass.
The team thanked him the only way they could.
And all 4 of them lined up out there in front of the ship and turned around and faced me, and all of them did that. And I flew away and never saw them again.
Until 30 years later at a reunion.
That was the first time we could personally thank him after 30 years.
And only then find out Larry was never nominated for the Medal of Honor, after his commanding officer and division commander were both killed weeks after the rescue. The paperwork and Larry's story of heroism became a casualty of the relentless battle tempo.
Yeah, I mean, we were shocked.
The only team member still alive, Hill took the lead and started a years-long effort to get Larry's Silver Star upgraded to the nation's highest military award. But he was denied twice. He turned to retired General B.B. Bell at the Medal of Honor Heritage Center in Larry's hometown, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
When he came to me, my first thought was, I've got to let this gentleman down easily, because the Army doesn't second guess its chain of command.
But then Dave Hill explained that key members of the chain of command were killed, and the 4 men rescued were never even interviewed.
And I almost fell out of my chair right in that room back over there. Everybody went back to war the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and soon the war just went marching along.
With Bell's help, Dave Hill submitted the Medal of Honor package a 3rd time, and it was approved. Last week at the White House, Hill's mission was finally complete, and a grateful nation learned the story of heroism that was almost lost in the brutal fog of war, if not for the persistence of one sergeant.
I always said helicopter pilots are my heroes, and Larry's the superhero.
These people that you were in the service with, they're closer to you than any family, any brother, your mother, your father, your whatever. And you'd die for any of them.
What did Larry Taylor give you that night?
Give me future life, future generation. Yeah. Wife, son, grandson now.
And he wasn't the only one. Taylor telling us about a message from one of the other soldiers' family members.
She came up and she says, Captain Taylor. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, if you hadn't have done what you did that night, none of these people would exist. So I thought, boy, y'all been busy up there, haven't you? And that kind of hit home.
How did that make you feel?
Like I wanted to cry, but I can't. They're not supposed to. Never let them see you cry.
But at the White House, an emotional moment.
We never lost a man, and we never left anybody behind for any reason. And I think I'm proud of that. I did my job.
Courtney Cubey, NBC News, Washington.
And that was the story of the Medal of Honor recipient, Larry Taylor. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States. Today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you to be honest, smart, and beautiful, and remember that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win.